Hey everybody, welcome. It's me, Ferny. I am a professional psychic medium and spiritual teacher, and this is my podcast. And if you are new to the show, to the program, then go ahead and check out my website at www.fernandomarone.com. You can also go and find me on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. And I believe I'm also on Snapchat, which I'm not late as of late. I haven't really been getting on there, but definitely frequent Facebook and Instagram quite often. So if you want to know more about me and my work and what I do, you can just check out my website because everything is linked on there anyways. I've been MIA for a couple of weeks. It's kind of summer, of course. Well, it's not kind of. It is summer. And most people during the summertime, they tend to spend more time with their families, they take trips, etc. And that has definitely been the case for me as well. I took a few weeks off to just kind of take a break and spend some time with my family. I went back to Houston for a little bit because most of my family is back in town, back in Houston, and so it's a bit of a drive. And I drive there and then I drive back, and each way is about 12, 13, almost 14 hours, depending on how many stops I make. So it's almost a 24-hour drive, more or less. Just to go and visit people. I think during the holidays, though, we're going to fly. Definitely going to fly. Last year, when we went down to Houston for the holidays, Thanksgiving traffic was insane. Now, the traffic between New Mexico, Santa Fe, and Dallas is fine. I mean, that's actually doable. It wasn't an issue. But once you get to that Dallas to Houston segment, oh my God, it is so bad. And there's always something that is, creating issues there, whether it be rain and the weather, or there's just a lot of people on the road. I know last year around Thanksgiving, it was just really bad. And we were like, we're not doing this again. Of course, we had to do it again because we were going to travel back for Christmas. But when we did it again for Christmas, we kind of coordinated ourselves a little bit better. But this year we're flying in. I don't even want to deal with it. And I know, granted, the airports are probably going to be insane as well because you've got people flying in from all over the damn place and flying for the holidays. But this year I'm not gonna drive for the holidays. I'm gonna go ahead and just fly in and fly out with Ed, so it's just easier for us. So I will gladly deal with the busy airport than to deal with hours and hours of crazy ass traffic. So I spent some time with my mom. I went down to Houston. I picked up my mom and I brought her up to Santa Fe to spend some time with me. And I wasn't sure how to feel about it because I did want my mom to come up here and to see our home and to spend some time here. And my mom's never really gone anywhere. I mean, she's traveled, I think, once when she was much younger. Her father, my grandfather, took her to Mexico, but she never really traveled much after that. I mean, there's San Antonio. We had an uncle in San Antonio, and he always had these amazing parties and pool parties, etc. So we'd always be there during the summertime, during summer break, but that's pretty much it. She's never really traveled much more than that. And I wanted to give her kind of an experience traveling to other states or to another place that was way different from Houston or Texas, because Houston, it is humid, it is hot most of the year, and it is flat. It's beautiful, lush green, but then, with that come mosquitoes and all that other stuff. But it's flat, right? There's not really a lot of terrain to take a look at. New Mexico it's mountainous and hilly, and there's a lot of areas here that are really beautiful to look at, and I wanted to give her that experience. So I had been working with her for several months to plan this trip, and she was just going to come up here and stay with us for a couple of weeks just so she could kind of get settled in, enjoy her time, and I was going to take her to see some of the sights and whatnot. So I wasn't sure how to feel about it, and I think the reason why I wasn't sure how to feel about it is because, for those of you who don't know my story with my mom is a schizophrenic. She suffers from undifferentiated schizophrenia, and growing up with her, I think at some point in my late teens. Well, I think it was around 8 or 9, she had a breakdown. And after that, my mom was never really the same. And it was a lot of struggle. It was a lot of trauma. and it just wasn't easy. And being responsible for my mother, having to step into a role of parent when you're still a child, it can really have a huge impact on you. And I think over time I built resentment towards my mom because, she wasn't okay. She couldn't take care of us the way that I was used to. I had to take care of us. I had to make sure bills were paid. I had to make sure that certain things were happening. I had to coordinate, with doctors and those kinds of situations. So I felt kind of not only responsible, but I had felt a bit resentful because I had to take so much responsibility on at such an early age. Fast forward, growing up and so forth, my mom over time became more independent and she was able to be more in charge of herself. But now at this point in our lives, I'm not really responsible for her and her well-being. I still talk with my mom. I still interact with my mom. But she has a group of people around her who make sure she's okay. And that makes me happy because it was a lot of work for me growing up to have to be that person for her. It was a lot of pressure. And now she's got a group of people around her who are there to support her. She doesn't need anybody. I mean, she can handle herself at this point, but still, it's nice to have people around you who are there for you. So I wasn't sure how to feel because I remember living with my mom. I remember having to be responsible for her. I remember having to make sure that she ate certain things, make sure that, it was always this effort and work with her. And, my mom wasn't the most cooperative person. Sometimes she would become argumentative about stuff. Sometimes she didn't want to do things. She didn't want to eat certain foods. It was a constant pushing her to do this or to do that. And it was all for her own well-being, but it was work. It was effort. So I wasn't sure what this trip was going to be like because I'd never really spent that much time with my mom in many, many years. It's been 10-15 years since I've had to live with my mother, since I've had to be responsible for her or whatnot. And my mom's getting older. I mean, she's almost 70, so she needs someone to help her. And she's not the lightest person in the world. She's got some extra weight on her, so it makes it harder on her to move around. And she's had several accidents over the last few years. One of them just, I think, a year ago or 2 years ago, where she popped her elbow out of its socket and then it didn't heal properly. So she's always got to be careful with the way she moves her arm. And then, of course, she dislocated her shoulder. She broke her shoulder several years prior to that. And we almost lost her because of the surgery. So, you have to watch out for her because she has a tendency of falling. She doesn't always watch what she's doing. And she'll trip and fall and hurt herself. And we're always worried, oh my God, she's going to fall on her good shoulder. Oh my God, she's going to fall on this or re-break this or break that again. So she's just being held together by glue and tape at this point. So I was worried. I was concerned. I was like, okay. And before she arrived, before I went down to get her, I was like, I kind of mom-proofed the house, where I moved all of the rugs that I felt she could trip over. I moved stuff out of her path so that it wasn't easy to miss a step and then hit something and then fall. She stayed in my office, so I kind of moved some stuff around in my office so that it was easy access for her. Everything was easy access for her. I got her a special chair for the bathroom, so when she took showers, because she has to sit down when she takes a shower. So all those little details, I had to kind of pay attention and take steps, take actions, preventative measures, so that way when she was here, we wouldn't have any situation come up where it's like, oh great, now I feel guilty or responsible that you hurt yourself or you did or something happened. So I mom-proofed the house before she came down, and even the drive, I was a little worried about the drive just because my mom has, I think a few years ago had her gallbladder removed. And so it's easy for her to have IBS. And for those of you who don't know what IBS is, it's irritable bowel syndrome, which is anything can kind of trigger your bowels to start functioning beyond your capacity to control. So it makes you want to run to the bathroom, and you feel like if you eat something, automatically you feel like you're gonna get a bout of diarrhea. So it's not fun and it's not enjoyable. But I mean, it's something that she struggled with, or struggles with. So I had all these little contingency plans, and I planned all of our little stops and where we would go, so that way if she needed to use the bathroom or she had to go to the bathroom, it'd be a nice bathroom at least. So I went down and got her, and the trip up here was pretty easy. I have to say, I was kind of surprised. And I enjoyed the trip up here. She got a kick out of it. I mean, we stopped at Buc-ee's on the way out of Houston, and my mom has never been to a Buc-ee's. And for those of you who don't know what a Buc-ee's is this like mega gas station that I think they're based out of Texas, and especially around the Houston area. So they're Buc-ee's everywhere, and they're huge. I mean, they're massive gas stations with tons of gas pumps. And they carry all kinds of like awesome and delicious goodies. And then they also have like shirts and souvenirs and all of that. So my mom hadn't been to a Buc-ee's before. And we stopped at a Buc-ee's, and she was just loving it. I mean, she really enjoyed the trip to Buc-ee's. And she was ready to like spend all her spending cash there. And I was like, no. Like, this is still Texas. We need to wait till we get to New Mexico, and then you can spend all of your cash there for all the souvenirs and stuff you want to buy. So the drive here was great. It was about 13 and a half hours. We actually made it in really good time. The last leg of the trip, which was right after we're just switching over from Texas to New Mexico, and at the border, we had a really bad rainstorm, a thunderstorm, which kind of triggered a lot of weird like maneuvers with the truck. And at some point, I swear to God, I felt like I must have driven through a twister or tornado, because we were in tornado country there. But like there was a sucking up sound that the truck made, which was weird, but it came from one side of the truck, and the truck kind of like moved and like it rocked a little bit, and I was like, what the hell? And then it stopped, and then the rest of the road was fine. That was kind of scary. And I ran into that again on the way back when I was dropping my mom off back home in Houston. So I was like, maybe this is just a bad area where storms tend to get really, really fierce. So we made it into New Mexico. She loved watching the terrain change. She enjoyed the little snacks we had on the way here. We had a brisket barbecue sandwich at Buc-ee's. They make their best barbecue brisket sandwiches, I think. And so we just had a really enjoyable drive here. We got here and we went to sleep. We got here dark, so she couldn't really see the mountains or the terrain here because it was already night. But she went to sleep, was very comfortable. And then the next day she got up and we just had breakfast, and she was amazed by the views, because here we have like mountainous views, and you get to see all of the mountains in the background, etc. And our house has amazing views of the mountains and the ranges. So I think she really loved seeing that. But we had a really good time. She was here for 2 weeks. I was responsible. I was going to have her cook a couple of days while she was here, just because I miss her cooking. Well, I ended up cooking like every single day, so it never happened. I made breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And my mom gave me no hell over it. She ate everything I made, and she enjoyed all of it. And she's actually been saying since she got back, she's been saying she misses my cooking, which is like, wow, okay. And I made some really good meals. I made some healthy stuff, but I also made some stuff that I'm used to making, like enchiladas and some of that stuff that I'm used to. So it was a delicious meal plan. I think she enjoyed all of that as well. I think she enjoyed being pampered as well. I helped her with all of her baths. I am not worried about nudity or anything like that. So when it was time for mom to have a bath, I'd help her in there. I'd hold her hand while she'd sit down. I'd help her with the water and all of that other stuff. So it wasn't any issue for me either. But it was an enjoyable experience. Now, granted, my mom is slower. She doesn't walk as far. She's not used to walking for long periods of time. But while she was here, she did do some walking. She was able to move around a bit. And whenever we would go to like a grocery store or to a place like Home Depot, where we were buying a bunch of stuff for the garden, because we were preparing the garden bed for like new flowers and salvia, I would make her responsible, knowing that she has a history of falling. I would make her responsible for the basket. And so I'd give her the basket, and she'd just push it everywhere. And that actually was the trick, because it kept her from falling, and she was still able to move at a pretty good pace. And she got some exercise in while she was here. So that made me happy. But it was a nice experience. It was an enjoyable experience. I think she loved it, and I only hear good things from my family members about her trip here. So that's pretty cool, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I've always been worried as my mom gets older. You never know what's going to happen, and you don't know if she's going to ever need to be, cared after or cared for in a way where she can't do for herself. And I did a lot of that already when I was younger. So, getting older, it's always been a concern or a thought in my head, like, what if she gets to that point? Am I going to be able to deal with her? Because I know a lot of people. I have a lot of clients whose loved ones and parents they have to care for. It is not easy, and they would rather do that than put them in a facility because they would feel guilty of them putting them in a facility and having to leave them there. I understand that perfectly. I remember this experience when I was a kid, and my mom was having a breakdown, and no one could help her, and so they had to put her in a mental facility so that she could receive some psychiatric care and also medication, and they'd be nurses 24 hours a day helping her with that. And I remember dropping her off, and we were leaving. And after we had gotten her settled in, and she just started breaking down and crying because she didn't want us to leave her there with all these strangers. And I mean, that broke my heart. I think, if anything, one of the most memorable and heartbreaking experiences of my life is leaving my mom there, and she's begging me not to leave her there. And I'm only like 9 or 10. I didn't understand, I didn't understand it, and I felt so guilty and so bad about that. So for me, I get the whole not wanting to put your parent in a facility, not wanting someone else to take responsibility for them, and then hurt them being mistreated or being neglected. So my plan, or what I would expect, is that, well, if my sisters can't do it or something happens, then mom would have to be with me. She'd have to live with me. It's not something I'm looking forward to. It's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll totally do this. I'll totally do this for my mom, because I know what my mom is like. So for me, it's been just like, okay, it's been a concern. It's been a worry in my mind. But having her here, and she was just so easy to get along with. She really enjoyed the time with me. We didn't have any. I think I maybe lost my patience once, and we were in a store, and my mom she was just grabbing stuff off the shelves to buy, wasn't really paying attention to the costs, and at some point she'd run out of cash. I mean, she was done, and then she wanted this other thing that it was actually really nice. It was like a purse or something. She wanted this other thing. Unfortunately, she'd run out of her spending money, so she didn't have anything left. And she was just like, but I want it. And it felt like me having to explain to a child, like, I understand that you want it, but you've already spent all of your money. Now, if you want to put some of these things back that you're buying other people that don't really meet, these random people that you've picked to buy stuff for, then you can probably afford that. But, you can't afford that now. And just having to talk about affording things and expenses and costs and etc. It totally immediately took me back to when I was a kid, and my mom, would get in line with a bunch of stuff, but she was never paying attention to how much stuff she'd gotten, and then she'd have to pay with food stamps, and of course she couldn't always afford everything, so she would have to put stuff back, and it always took me back to that time when I had to go through that experience. And as a kid, I felt embarrassed because you don't know any better as a kid. But as an adult, that moment took me back, and I was like, Mom, leave it alone. Leave it. It's okay. You can't get that. I'm sorry, but you can't get it. You just spent all of your cash. So that was the only time I think I lost my patience a little bit, because I felt like I had to get firm with her and be like, Mom, leave it alone. And I said it in Spanish, déjalo, which is Spanish for leave it. But I felt a little annoyed at that moment. But aside from that, I was the only time. I remember living with my mom, and I was annoyed every single day because she would do something or something would happen. But no, this trip, this experience was not like that. And I even told my partner, I said, I'm pleasantly surprised that my experience with my mom has been so nice, and it's actually been enjoyable and really nice having her here, and I enjoyed the time with her. And I don't remember the last time that I've been able to say that. My mom and I, you have to understand, my mom and I, when I was growing up, it was just me and her. This was before my stepfather was in the picture, before my sisters were born. It was just me and her. My mom was a single mom. She wasn't ill, she wasn't mentally unstable, she was fine. And we used to take these like glorious trips, and I call them glorious trips because you don't really do these anymore. But we used to get on the bus, we used to take the bus into town, go into downtown, go to Woolworths, and we'd go shopping or just looking at stuff. And I'd always go to the pet area, because the pet shop, because they'd always have like the hamsters and all of that stuff there. And I loved just sitting there and staring at the hamsters and the little fish and all of that. And my mom would go off and look at, hobby stuff. She always liked crafts and hobbies and stuff like that. So I remember those trips, and every time we'd go, we'd always stop and eat somewhere, and she would treat me to like a hot dog or a pizza or a fruit bowl or something. And those were really, really enjoyable memories that I have of spending time with my mother. Of course, after my stepfather came into the picture and my sisters were born, I didn't have those experiences as much. And then when she got ill and she just changed and became this other person because of her illness, that all stopped, and I didn't remember having any more experiences like that with mom. So when she was here for this 2.5 weeks, it almost felt like this glorious, like us going out, because I only go out like once or twice a week to the groceries or to run errands, and she'd go out with me, and she just loved going out with me. And it felt like we had switched positions, and I was mom and she was me, and we'd just go to places, and I'd go do the shopping, and she'd be responsible for the car, and she'd help me with the groceries and picking out stuff. And it felt very, very nice. And I thought that I would never have an experience with my mom like that again. I felt like those times were over. They stopped years and years and years ago when I was a kid. So I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated that with my mother. And it just made me think about how sometimes the things that we lose in life, we go through our lives, we grow, times change, people change, and sometimes we lose these moments that we didn't even realize we appreciated. We lose these little moments of just being with someone or experiencing something. We don't even realize how important it is to us until we get older and we look back on those moments. And I felt grateful that I was able to have that moment again with mom, and how, it is possible for you to see things in a very different way, to experience the things in a very different way. Life is not easy. Life is not the easiest experience for us to have. I mean, we all go through trauma. We all go through pain. We all go through challenges. And sometimes we get so jaded. Sometimes we get so stuck in the what's wrong, or this isn't the way it should be, or that's just the way it is, and I'm not even going to deal with that because it's just the way it is. And in my life, there are things that I intentionally stay away from, because I know it's going to negatively have an effect on me, or it's going to trigger something in me that I just do not wish to give any more energy. So there are things that I try to stay away from. I try to stay away from heavy traffic. I try to stay away from heavy, crowded places, because I know what it causes within me. I know how it affects me. And so with mom, because I become so used to her being this way, I intentionally kept her at arm's length. I've intentionally limited the amount of time I've spent around her these past few years, because there are lots of triggers. There are a lot of things that she begins to stir up within me, and I don't really want to feel that way. I don't want to experience that. And I don't want to have a negative experience with mom either. Even if I try to have a good moment with her, something will change, or she begins to act differently. So it was nice. It was nice, I have to say. Now, once mom got back, it's like a light switch flipped, and she went right back to the way she's used to being. So, like, as soon as she got back, she started acting the way that I'm used to her acting now, and being the way, and immediately as soon as she got back into home, it was like mom went back to mom that I remembered when I wasn't having the greatest time with mom. And I was like, oh no, I gotta go. All right, mom, I love you. I'll talk to you next time, or I'll talk to you next weekend. So I was like, okay. But it's just funny how you take her out of an environment, you put her somewhere new, you give her new experiences. It's just, she changed, and then she goes right back into that environment, and it's like she went right back to what I'm used to her being. And it was odd, but it wasn't surprising because that's mom, right? That's mom. But we talked, and I think she's coming up here again next January, right after the holidays, so she can come up here during winter when there's snow, so she can have that experience of snow, because I don't think she's really had that full experience. But yeah, so that's what I did on my time off. Like I said, I've been on vacation. I notice a lot of people tend to take vacation as soon as summer starts, as soon as May is coming around and people are graduating and people are coming out of school. As soon as June kicks into gear, there's less. I noticed that there's less involvement with people. There's less interaction. Back when I was at Starbucks, as soon as June started, it would slow down a bit, and we wouldn't have such crazy rushes in the morning. We would still have rushes, but not as intensely as during the school year when everybody's back in school and everybody's on a regular schedule. So it's been nice to be on vacation and to kind of take this time to myself. And I've been reassessing like my entire experience in my own profession and what I do, because I have my work days where I work with clients, and then I have an admin day each week where I work on administrative stuff, whether it's sending clients recordings or posting social media content, preparing social media content, recording podcasts, etc. But I've for the last few weeks, and since I've been prepping for mom and then having mom with me, I've been kind of taking it easier, and I haven't been as involved in the administrative aspect of my job or my work as, I still have my appointment days with my clients, but I haven't really been doing as much admin stuff or being as active on social media and as active, I feel, with like Facebook Lives and etc. So it's been my time off. But now I'm getting right back into that. And I realize that I really enjoy and I really appreciate my job, my work, and what I do. Granted, like I get to help people and I get to do some really amazing things for other people. And that's great. That's separate. That's like the calling. That's like your life's calling. But as far as like the actual work itself, because people think that, you have these, you're having these amazing experiences. Like, no, it's a regular job. It's a real job. I used to watch tons of like shows on TV about ghosts and paranormal stuff and psychics, etc. I don't watch that anymore at all. Like I used to watch Teresa Caputo, I used to watch John Edwards. I don't watch any of that stuff, and nor do I even feel like the need to watch it, because whenever I watch stuff like that, it just reminds me of working, and I feel like I'm working again. So I don't watch it. I just don't do it. So for me, I don't really interact, or I don't really do a lot of stuff that reminds me of work when I'm not working, especially when I'm going through like a period of a few weeks where I'm on vacation. So now I'm getting back into that mode where I'm like, okay, now it's work time, it's prepping, and I'm starting to get myself back into that schedule. So it's been a nice little respite and break for me. I wonder how you guys have been doing on your vacations. If you guys taken vacations, I know some people don't take vacations when they need to. I don't understand that. People who get all this vacation time and then they feel guilty when they take a time off of work or they take time away from work. And then on top of that, like not only do they take time off of work, then they go and take on the responsibility of a trip that is even more stressful than their work schedule. So they go on a vacation that is just so stressful. There's like activities every single moment. They don't have any time to relax or chill. And then they come back and they're even more exhausted from the trip than they were before they took the trip. So I don't understand those kinds of vacations. I always tell people, like, you should always make it a point to take a solo, like a staycation at least twice a year. People should be taking like 4 vacations a year, I think, just because that should be the least. The least. I know if some people they can't, but people should be taking at least 4 periods off a year, and 2 of those should be like staycations where they're at home or they're like relaxing and chilling out. Now, if there's a lot of stressful people in your home, then maybe you need to take a solo-cation where you're going on a trip or doing something by yourself and not having to worry worry about dealing with anybody else's BS, because you should have that recharge time. You should have that opportunity to just like get your battery charged back up, and that way you can like continue on and continue the human experience, and working and having to deal with families and whatnot. So yeah, but well, I love you guys. I know this podcast was more about me just talking about my mom and my experience with her. But I wanted to share. I wanted to share what it was like for me and how I was functioning and processing and going through all of that. So not so much of spiritual insight in this podcast, just a podcast about my experience with my mom and my vacation and what my vacation was like. So I'd love to hear what your vacation experiences were like. Feel free to share those on the comments section of any platform that you're using. Again, if you want to know more about me and the work that I do, check out my website, www.fernandomarone.com. Everything that I have is linked to there. You can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram, and don't forget to like or follow me on there, because I do get on there regularly to do free readings for you guys. I'm also about to have a new course coming out soon. I'm working on it. It is in the works. And I've actually been going through the process of creating this for the last few months. And now I'm actually working on the course itself. It's going to be a course on how to utilize a vision board, because I've had a lot of success with vision boards, but I understand how to utilize them properly. Most people don't. And whenever I look at people's vision boards, I immediately start to notice that they are basically like, they are reducing the ability of the board to serve them because they've done this or they've done that. And I want people to be able to benefit from their own vision boards, so that they can create more manifestations. They can start to produce more circumstances that align with their vision, their greater vision. And when it comes to like finances or with love and relationship in that way, when it comes to who you want to be and what you want to do in the world, it's going to be about that. So I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys what I am working on. I love you all, and I will see you next time. Okay, talk to you then. Bye bye.